And good evening, everyone. I'm Blake McCandless, joined alongside by Justin Prince and Zach Johnson down in the virtual production trailer. It is round number 9 of the Virtual Stock Car Racing Association running of the National Premier Series, and we're coming to you live from the Kansas Speedway. And Justin, we're getting through qualifying right now. We have a heat momentarily that may run a couple of drivers, but for the most part, we're going to look forward to tonight's 100-lap main event. And, you know, it's definitely been something here at Kansas this week. Whenever you talk about Kansas and iRacing, you start to venture up to that top side, and it's going to be interesting to see how these competitors maneuver their cars and have to plan out their moves ahead of time.
Yes, and that in part is because of the progressive banking around this racetrack. The higher you go, the more banking there is, meaning the more speed you can carry. At the same time, though, there's so much risk where, yes, the quicker line, once the long run kicks in, can be the top line. But it's also going to be important to make sure you conserve your tires, especially with this car for tonight, because you lose that right rear tire, you're forced to lift or potentially spin, you're likely going backwards. You manage to save the tires, you're likely keeping yourself up towards the front of the main pack.
That is certainly the case, and that is something we'll have to watch over the course of the night. And even as you look out on your track right now, one of the benefits of being in the virtual world, as we are here at Kansas tonight, it is bright right now, but as qualifying will expire, we have just about 45 seconds or so left in this qualifying session. We are eventually going to transition directly to nighttime for this race tonight. They wanted the track to be a little bit slicker, a little bit of a higher track temperature. It is currently at 101 degrees, 66 degrees outside, but 101 is your track temperature, and we'll see that cool down a significant amount. So when you talk about these Xfinity cars not having quite the amount of horsepower, if you're going to run the high horsepower package here at Kansas, but obviously a little bit slower, but they're going to get a little bit of a boost with some of that grip. But we'll let the clock for qualifying wind down, just a couple of seconds to go. And it looks like Justin Bland, who is just making it his third start of the season and is going to collect his second pole award, and he's going to be able to do it just slightly over Brian Mercurio. And of course, now we'll have our heat event that we talked about. It'll just really be a point, Justin, where these guys are just going to set a couple of spots back on the grid. It's not going to affect the race too much. It's going to be just about 6 drivers or so that are going to run in this 7-lap feature rather.
Yeah, but the surprise is who some of the drivers are in here. Brian Fritz didn't put in a good qualifying time in the 31.7s. Hayden Ruffin and Andrew Fitzgerald did not put in times. But the top driver in practice tonight will be starting deep from the edge of the field here tonight, Blake, potentially going for those hard charger points. Preston Pardis, keep an eye on him in the 90. Tristan Hagenstein was also quick in practice. Those two drivers may be thinking about that type of point set rather than going for, say, the pole points towards the early portion of this night.
And that's a good point you bring up, Justin, not just about those points, but in general. There are some rather unique situations they use for the points in this series. Obviously, you get 48 for winning, 44 for finishing second, 41 for coming up in third, 38 for fourth, and then obviously you have your 1-point increments all the way back to 40th place. But some of the bonus points, reminiscent of days gone by in NASCAR, you have 1 point that's awarded to the pole winners, so Justin Bland secures that, but you also get one kind of old school style. You get one for leading a lap, one for the most laps led, one for a fastest lap, and you also have a hard charger award. So I think Preston Pardis and some of those drivers that elected not to take qualifying time, that's what they're keeping their eyes on.
Curious to see if anyone touches the racetrack here, but the main thing is going to be, can they find their way through the field? Because 100 laps, there's a lot of potential strategy to come into play. It's a one stop on the field, yes, but when you think about the potential for when you come in for tires, when the cautions fly, that can all switch things up and change how this race can fare out at a track such as Kansas tonight.
Well, and we had this heat feature, but apparently, so Justin, this was something that we ran into a couple of weeks ago where you see the pace car is out on the racetrack right now, pacing around all by himself. So I guess this Ford Mustang is going to go to victory lane. But we actually had a situation. It was another league that I was broadcasting in a couple of weeks ago where the same situation happened, just a heat to kind of, in case we had a full field tonight. We didn't quite get all 43 slots for people to run in the heat. So this is just a kind of formality, if you will, to determine the last 6 spots on the grid. But the last time I saw this happen where nobody took the grid, nobody took the green flag, we ran into an issue where the race would never officially start because nobody took the green flag. And so we may be in a bit of a holding period here because these drivers that are allowed to start on pit road, obviously if you miss the grid in iRacing, you can start on pit road, but I think iRacing needs a car on the track to begin the race and detect a green flag. So if we may be in a very awkward situation here where we're waiting on the race to start and it's never going to come.
There's a possibility, yes, but the thing to keep an eye on is there is a 5-minute timer for this race, so it can potentially go quick. At the very least, there is a car in the middle of the pit lane thinking, maybe I should go out here in Preston Pardis and get some track position. That could get him extra 3 starting positions if he just rolls on the racetrack here and is the only one to take the grid if he elects to do so.
And I don't think that's going to happen because the pace car is on pit road. The lights are not off. The green flag has not been displayed. And, of course, in iRacing, if you miss the grid, typically what will happen is the green flag will be displayed, the race will start, and any driver that misses the grid will have to serve about 5 seconds or so, not of a penalty, but just have to wait a little bit before you can start to roll off of pit road. Well, guess what? If you never get the green flag, you never get to roll. And so Pardis is not being released. The green flag is not coming out. And I think the pace car is just trying to secure its victory right now because nothing is happening. And I think we just may have to wait for enough of this time to roll by before we get going here.
Yeah, this is going to start some discussions here. He says, and I quote, "I messed up." Pretty sure he has to turn a lap here for things to be okay here. But keep in mind, the championship still has a lot of potential possibilities because some of the top drivers in practice, Jacob Fisher and Timmy Pact, top 2 in the standings entering tonight here, Blake. 30 points separate the 2 of them. Just 1 lap difference in how many they've turned in on the season. Question's going to be which one of those drivers can build up in a gap or try and close in the gap. Mercurio, Henderson, and Riley, of course, also in contention as well in the championship fight.
They are in contention, although the green flag has been displayed now. So I guess we'll see if any of these drivers who are supposed to take part of the grid this evening. We did see Preston Pardis disconnected from the server. We'll have to see if he got back in. But as the green flag comes out, Justin, I would call the race, but right now the pace car just doing a solid job sitting there on pit road in the lead.
Yeah, I think because Preston jumped out, that is going to allow them to advance the session here. Surprised they didn't do it on the grid itself. The timer is underway, so we will get underway for the main race tonight in about 5 minutes. So at the very least, the drivers can take notes and see, okay, what is the pace car doing? Is the driver on full throttle? Is the pace car hitting the brakes? Stuff like that, you know? Try and keep nice and loose.
Absolutely, and I think we're still continuing to see what's going to happen. We did see Pardis, connected, disconnected. He's jumped back in the server now, so he is getting back in. He didn't retire from the session, so don't have to worry about any issues there. But we still have yet to see what Briar Fritz on your screen in the 12, Hayden Ruffin, Andrew Fitzgerald, obviously Pardis as well, Tristan Hagenstein, and then Peter Akumano. They have not rolled out yet, and I think the race control advanced the session, but we're not getting any signal that the race has come to an end. So we may just have to wait this thing. Yeah, we'll wait this thing out. It was 5 minutes on the grid, so you see the timer on your screen right there, and that'll eventually count us down to where we can just in this heat. Again, this is all just setting the back 6 positions on the grid, so I don't think anybody's going to be too upset if we don't get anybody rolling here. We're just going to continue on in the main feature tonight.
There are several contenders, though, when you think about it, who could try and win this race tonight from what we've seen practice pace, from what we've seen qualifying-wise, who may have a strong shot, because Michael Frisch is competitive, Vargas, Fischer, several others competitive tonight, as we're all set to go under the lights here, it looks like.
It is, as you see, the quick transition tonight. The pace car teleports over, and we will roll it off from the grid with many of the contenders that we were just talking about. We'll go ahead and give you the starting lineup for tonight's event. Justin Bland, as we mentioned, this is only his third time out in the series. He wins his second pole in as many events. Brian Mercurio, one of the points leaders, currently comes in third with 3 wins. He leads the series with those 3 wins. He'll start to the outside of row number 1. It'll be Mitchell Riggs, who rolls off the inside of row number 2. Joey Stone in 4th. Kyle Riley will roll off in 5th. Timmy Paccioli in 6th. It'll be Michael Frisch in 7th. Christopher Heller in 8th. Ryan Vargas will start in 9th. And Jake Fisher will round out the top 10.
Aaron Hale starts in 11th spot with Henderson in 12th position. We'll see how the 37 does. One of the drivers inside the top 5 in the championship. Will Rogers, one of the quickest cars in practice, starts 13th tonight alongside Zachary Sullivan, with Austin Moore in 15th. Cody Erdman starts 16th, and Nick Hansen in his first start on a full race probation now as part of joining the series will start in P17 alongside Jonathan Palmieri. Arnold Columbia and Avery Schwarm round out your top 20.
It'll be Austin Drake rolling off 21st. 22nd starting spot will go to Chad Mikas. 23rd to Nick Olson. 24th is Davis Warren. 25th goes to Keith Sherman. 26th is Richard Sprague Jr. 27th, Eric Kempf. 28th is Kyle Short. 29th is Andrew Schwartz. 30th is Edwin Mendez.
Rest of the field, Brad Perez deep in the field. He'll look to try and see if he can get some points, as well as a chance to celebrate with some bread in victory lane. Justin Melillo 32nd, Gabe Herschel 33rd. Brian Fritz rounds out the drivers with qualifying times along with Hayden Ruffin, along with Fitzgerald. Preston Pardis, Hagenstein, and Peter Acumano did not set qualifying times. 39 drivers set to race tonight.
And I guess we'll unofficially bid congratulations to Brian Fritz, who I guess by virtue of nobody showing up, he ends up winning with the fastest qualifying time through that heat. But we'll go ahead and look forward to 100 laps tonight at the Kansas Speedways. At pace car will pull off to pit road, and Justin Bland in the Coors Light Chevrolet will get us going. And we are under the green flag, and what a restart there from the bottom line. And this is where it'll be interesting, Justin. Are you going to go to the bottom or the top? You'll see Bland ducks down to the bottom of the racetrack. Riggs will go to the top side, and there, Riley is sliding in front of the field, and that's going to collect a couple of them, and the caution flag is going to come out quickly as Kyle Riley is actually going to save it in what is a wreck that is going to collect him, but then there's a big wreck in the back of the field that will collect several race cars well after the yellow flag came out.
Well, that was quick. There were several drivers shockingly just charging for the bottom up the track and drifting it all the way up. Riley got the most snap out of it, it looked like there and all of that. And the drivers who got the most destroyed out of that, Joey Stone, the RCR Esports driver, just had nowhere to go, slammed hard to the inside wall. As a result of that, Blake, significant damage. He's done for the night already. Already some discussion over all of this with how tight and how much of a drift there was and how close they were in the first place.
Well, you see Riley on your screen just a moment ago. He slides up, gets loose off of turn 2, and you see Stone is just going to go right to the wall. Nothing he can do about that. And then you see a lot of drivers in the back of the field. And again, this was well after the caution flag was displayed, get caught in an incident. And it all started, I think, around the 39 machine of Arnold Columbia, who got loose, was checking up, saw everything happening in front of him. And he takes out what looks like several cars here at the tail end of the field as Columbia was running in 19th. You see Avery Schwalm, he gets involved in that. Davis Warren gets tagged in that. Chad Mikas gets a little bit of damage in his Valvoline Chevrolet. So a very interesting start to the night, Justin. We have a heat that nobody officially runs, and then off a turn 2, can't complete one lap as Riley gets loose up front, and several other drivers try to navigate their way through some of the spins behind.
Yeah, already several drivers with significant damage or already out of the race as a result of all this craziness. But here's the one thing to think about. There is a fair amount of tire sets available in the pits tonight. 4 total, 4 in the pits, I should rather say 5 total for this race tonight. The tough part now, already seen by that, is yes, the bottom line has been traditionally quicker on the short run, but if you're trying to come up off the corner and drifting four wheels all up the track like Justin Bland and Kyle Riley there were, how many drivers are going to, in theory, be able to actually make it stick? I'm not quite sure. There might be more drivers migrating to the top because they might be afraid of spinning it out early.
No, I think you're absolutely right, and that's really where the issue started for Kyle Riley. Was he was on the bottom of the racetrack, and that's the reason that you favor the top side here at Kansas. It's just that little bit of extra grip, a little bit of extra banking can help that car turn just a little bit better. And Riley was just trying to slide up in front. Obviously, just first lap wasn't I wouldn't call it an aggressive move, but was just trying to clear himself up to the top side, and eventually just lost control of the car. And that shows you how important it is to try and get to the top side of the track very early. And we saw a lot of this in practice, Justin. A lot of drivers, particularly off of turn 2, having some issues getting a little bit loose. So we'll have to see for the drivers. We mentioned the weather that we had for qualifying and the difference in time and track temperature. Again, the track temperature was about 40 degrees hotter in qualifying than it is right now. Just 66 degrees Fahrenheit is the track temperature, 64 ambient temperature. But, Justin, the other thing I have to think about here is the wind. 15 miles an hour wind blowing southwest here. And, I mean, that's going to be something that maybe affects the handling of these drivers. You typically don't see that high of a wind when you come out here in iRacing.
It can make it a little more snappy in the corners as well. The draft is behind them for the wind, I should say, down the front. That's going to make them faster there and slower down this front. Here we go, though.
We'll have to see how that comes into play. Once again, Justin Bland, a great restart for the Coors Light Chevrolet. He goes to the top spot, and once again will be green flag racing as Bland trying to hold on. He's going to be able to do it. Mercurio goes from the bottom, or the top to the bottom, rather, to try to defend. He has second. Side by side for third, it's Riggs and Christopher Heller who is making that top side work in the Monster Energy Toyota. And Pacholi rounds out your top 5 as really you see an exodus up to the top side of the racetrack.
And that's not a surprise. That's been the case in the Cup cars. That's been the case in a lot of the trucks at times. It's the case already now in the Xfinity cars with that higher amount of banking. The difficult part that's going to be here, though, is how you try and move your way to the field, because, one, if you're stuck on the bottom and don't find a hole, you're going to get freight trained like this 09 machine of Mitchell Riggs if you can't find space. But two, you also need to find a way eventually to try and park the bus and make moves, and that's going to be the most difficult part if you want to try and make passes throughout this race tonight.
It's going to be hard as you see the 09 of Mitchell Riggs is stuck on the bottom, and this is the position you don't want to be in, is being freight trained on the top side. As Riggs still side by side right now, it's with the 86 of Pacholi. Is he going to be able to slide up here, and are you going to make aggressive moves? Right now, he's not going to be able to. Jake Fisher will peek to his outside, and you see the same problem in front. Is now the 09 nearly hits the 84 as he tries to get to the top side. Is he going to shut the door on the TikTok Chevy? He doesn't, and this is where it can just go from bad to worse very, very quickly. Riggs was up in third. Now he's in seventh. It's still drifting back.
And this is going to kill his tires, too, because drivers have talked about a little bit. You can get away with riding on the bottom side in this type of setup for about 4 or 5 laps maybe, but not this many along the white line or even in the middle without hurting your run through about the 25 to 30 lap mark. So that 09 machine is going to be paying the price here and now, looking like Will Rogers is going to have to pay the price a little bit. He's gone stuck on the bottom side.
Well, and that was of his own doing. And, you want to be aggressive, you want to make moves, but this is one of the themes that you're going to hear throughout the night is planning out your moves ahead of time. However, for Rogers, he gets enough of a run off the corner. Can he clear himself? And Vargas is going to let him in. So that is a major break there for Will Rogers in that 55 machine to try and get up to the top side of the racetrack. And he actually is able to pick off 2 more spots. So Rogers up into now what is 6th position, and that move ends up working out for the Space Station Gaming machine.
Yeah, those 2 compatriots are working fairly well tonight, I should say. Jake Fisher, of course, the points leader. Will Rogers, of course, with a lot of racing experience on iRacing as well in real life. throughout 2020, started this organization, made its first appearances, if you think back to the Invitational Series for NASCAR back in about April and May for the Saturday Night Thunder Series. That's doing well so far. But for Brian Mercurio, up towards the fight for the lead, he's been feeling confident about this track all week in this car. I think he's getting to where he knows he's quicker. He's just waiting for the right moment to make a pass on Justin Bland for the lead here.
Well, and there's no doubt about it. I think Brian Mercurio has a lot of confidence at any racetrack that he goes to recently. Somebody that I know I've raced in this community for many, many years. And, there's a reason that he qualified fairly easily for the iRacing Pro Series that's going to take part this fall. It's just any racetrack we go to, we obviously got to document his dominant performance last week at the Charlotte Roval when he won that race pretty handily. And there's a reason in 6 starts he has 3 wins in this series. He's awfully confident at any track you go to, and he qualifies up front, and I think you have to obviously think of him as a favorite to try and win tonight.
He usually brings out a lot of his skill set more on the road courses. He's talked about that a little bit here and there with me in the past, but he can also be pretty speedy on the mile-and-a-half circuits. We're seeing that tonight. But several other cars, mind you, have been already, as we've seen, been very consistent here and very good at tire saving. Mercurio in that group. You can also probably put Michael Frisch in that group whenever he's been able to calm on down. We've seen that battle a little moments ago. A couple of these drivers are just natural long-run competitors where they're more patient and know to plan out their spots to say, okay, want to let the car breathe, make sure it doesn't overheat, and if someone tries to make the move on the bottom and can't make it stick, I can make the pass. If they end up making the move, okay, I'll pass them by later on.
We'll see if they can do it. Nick Olson right now is trying to kind of flip everybody on its head right now, as he has been on the bottom side and been running in the 9th position for the last handful of laps, just trying to make something happen down there on the bottom side. And it's tough to go down there, Justin, but you think about if everybody's up in the top line, any mistake up there kind of lets you in free there on the bottom. He was able to maintain his position for about 3 or 4 laps and not really lose anything, but there you eventually see he kind of calls it quits after that. So no doubt about it, that top side is where you want to be. Olson, who started all the way back in the 23rd position already here on lap 15, has worked his way up into the 11th after missing some of those early wrecks. But there you see it once again. He's being very aggressive, the most out of anybody that's up here in the top 10 or 12 or so. He's trying as desperately as he can to make some moves on the bottom, but I think it's just proving how hard it is. But there you see the top side gets checked up into 1 and 2. That's what he needs, as he now gets side by side with the 37 of Elliott Henderson for a moment.
Yeah, I think he's getting a little bit impatient here, and if that lap traffic going to give him some dirty air, that's going to hurt him a little bit on the bottom side. But you have to remember, last night, if you think back to, if you're watching along with Podium Esports, he was able to get a massive victory in Anthony Alfredo's series, ERL, where it came down to the wire in that side of things. He was able to survive what was a massive incident down from turn 4 all the way to turn 1 and had the least amount of damage at that moment. If he pulls some type of luck like that or keeps himself a clean race car for the end of the race like that, he might be able to do the same thing this evening, because he has been a top 10 car in fixed competition this week here at this track.
He has been. We'll have to see if he can continue to make his way forward. He passes Cody Erdman, who now gets drop kicked back to 11th. Aaron Hale right now holding on for 13th, as a battle brewing down the front straightaway here with Austin Drake. And, this is a move that, even I feel like I've taken advantage of. You could see Ryan Vargas lets another car by. As he's into the outside wall, contact there with Vargas, who's somehow able to save it. They scatter 3 wide, and this is where things get really interesting, Justin. You have a checkup, cars in the wall. Who can get to that top side quicker and keep up their momentum? Elliott Henderson scrapes the wall in 3 and 4, but Vargas somehow able to hang on to that race car after getting some contact.
And that was the concern I had for drivers if they didn't save their tires, is eventually the rear going to snap loose off the corner or they're going to plow into the wall. And as we've already seen, some are just starting to plow now. That are maybe trying to push a little bit too much. Again, a bit of a snap. Both of them trying to keep off some other cars here. Getting a little bit sketchy now for some of these cars. I think their tires are completely going off the cliff.
I think they are. You see a slide job move, one of the classic ways that you have to pass here at Kansas. As they work 2 by 2. You see on your screen 3 rows deep. Henderson on the bottom. He's able to clear himself and move up in front of a couple of cars. That'll put him in the 9th position. But now Aaron Hale, can he clear the 09, who was that car up in about the top 5 or so, right in front of Ryan Vargas? He got some right front quarter panel damage, and that is not a welcome sight. If you know anything about these Xfinity cars, the aerodynamics particular are of great importance. So if Riggs, he's going to be handling not too great, he's going to lose some speed, and that right front fender damage, that's going to tighten him up a bit. So if you're behind him, you're going to look to pounce on it pretty quickly.
Looking like this is calming down a little bit. Of note, Brian McCurry was able to make the pass just as things got crazy here, though, Blake. Just able to get a good run on the bottom side, force a bit of a checkup, get the run and more cars on the wall.
And a big checkup there into the outside wall. Once again, the 09 of Mitchell Riggs tags the wall, as again, he is just not having the great handling on that race car. Almost ran into the back of Aaron Hale, but any of the damage that he previously had was just made a lot worse, as now Austin Drake, who was marching up from the 14th position, you'd imagine that he's going to look by Riggs here momentarily to try to get by, because that 09, it is ailing and it is tight. Really in the center of the corner. You see he almost gets in the wall again.
And that's not a good feeling, especially in 3 and 4, because it's much more tighter on the corner exit, of course, since you're having to go into the tri-oval portion of the track. And if you're plowing tight or hit the gas too hard in that specific part of the track and on exit, especially with a tight car, you're mowing that fence down. And in many cases in the past, drivers have mowed the fence down, crashed into the infield. And our car scraping the wall in the back of the field here once again.
More cars scraping the back. The 09 once again into the fence, as now Austin Drake finally going to be able to go by directly in front of this battle that you see on your screen. Austin Moore has tagged the outside wall. The 52 is doing his best to hang on the top side. And this is a big bunch of cars, and they are getting awfully racy with cars that are not handling all too great. We mentioned Preston Part has started in the back of this field, started back in 37th. He's already worked his way up to 17th. 52 right in front of this battle is in the wall. They stack them up. Somehow they don't wreck as they're playing bumper cars here on the back straightaway. Partis able to take advantage and make his way by, but oh boy, is it getting nasty here for about 15th, 18th position.
How in the world have they kept it straight so far? I'm surprised we haven't seen a caution at the rate they're going. Another bit of contact trying to squeeze to the outside here. These cars are being overly aggressive for this portion of the race. Eventually, somebody's just going to demolish themselves with the way this is going. They're all splacking off the wall with how tight they are. A couple of them are drifting off the corners. This is completely dangerous as a competitor, where you just want to be able to make sure you're away from this as fast as possible at this rate.
You are, and I'll have to direct you to the battle for the lead. Brian Mercurio, new person up front. He takes the top spot a couple of laps ago over Justin Bland. So you mentioned saving tires. You can see the difference right there as the top two have pulled about 8 to 10 car lengths over Jake Fisher in third. But we'll try to direct you back to this insane battle that's going on back here for 17th position. Kyle Riley, after, again, he was one of the cars that slid earlier on, having an issue. He's able to hold on right now to 17th, and it looks like this battle's starting to sort itself out. Kyle Short making his way by on the high side. That by the 52 of Cody Erdman, who scraped the outside wall earlier. Erdman not having a good go of it, starting to fade through the field with some of that damage.
Yeah, there's a massive, massive dent on the back of Sullivan's car as well, and that's really hurting him as well. These cars are just struggling around here, already to fall off 1.2 seconds, even though it's the nighttime. Eventually, though, this is going to fall potentially up to 2 seconds based on the trends throughout the week in these cars. At the same time, you have to think, eventually someone's going to have to take a deep breath here and save some of their equipment, because for a lot of them, they've just completely burned them up here.
They really have, and they are still stacked up. You see on your screen, they are nose to tail here. And again, this is all the way back for 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th position. But nevertheless, for these guys, they come out here to race hard, but it has been, they've been rubbing and it's been clean. We have been slowed by just that one caution flag that took place off of turn 2 on lap 1. But otherwise, despite all the carnage we've seen, we have still managed to run under the green flag as we're approaching nearly lap 30 of this event. Still battle going on for another driver trying to march his way up through the field. I'm taking a look right there at obviously the 11 going by some of the slower lap traffic. One car to the outside wall off of 2. It's the 31 of Kyle Short. He's going to lose a handful of positions. That's going to stack them up 2 by 2 as they work into 3. You see 2 by 2, 3 rows deep back here for about 18th.
And more contact. I believe someone just got squeezed in the wall of that Valvoline car. Everyone's getting a bit of contact here, and the more damage you get for a track like this, the more it'll hurt you at this point. The lap traffic is going to get very ugly here too, because some of them are just trying to hold on, but some of them are being used as complete picks in all of this. Oh, by the way, Michael Frisch, we talked about him a little bit. Good on the long run. He's up to 4th once again.
No surprise there as Frisch slowly marching his way up through the field. Started in 7th, but now he's actually going to be under assault from Christopher Heller, who is kind of in the same position as Frisch. They started side by side in row number 4. They run 4th and 5th respectively right now, but there you see Heller just not able to quite get the job done as he tried to pull the slider on Michael Frisch, but they're both chasing down Jake Fisher, who has marched quietly through this field as well. Started all the way up in 10th and is now up to 3rd. And it's been a race of that where we've seen a lot of guys that didn't necessarily qualify in the top 10. They're starting to make their way forward. Fisher started 10th, is in 3rd. Will Rogers started back in 13th. He's in 6th. You've also seen Nick Olson started in 23rd. He's up in the 8th position. So a lot of movers throughout this field trying to get those 2 extra bonus points.
The thing is, though, when it comes to Fisher up here at the front of the field for P3, he's doing his job right now, and that is outrun his championship competitor in Timmy. Already, it's in a good spot to gain at least 5+ more points compared to him by the end of the night, give or take, to be able to grow that up. The more points you can gather up, though, the more you're able to bank in, because Texas is next week. That race likely going to be similar because the bottom line's the dominant line. But when you have Martinsville, Phoenix, and Homestead all mixed in after that, the final 3 races for the season could completely shake up the championship complexion.
They certainly could. Well, while we work lap 33 here of 100, we'd like to remind you that the Racing Experts is your place for NASCAR, eNASCAR, and other motorsports news. Visit www.racingexperts.com today. And speaking of the Racing Experts, one driver who wanted to forget the Roval last week and is not having much better of a go of it tonight, the UFI Ford Mustang. That is Justin Melillo. Back in 32nd is where he started. Currently running in the 30th position and just has not had any luck. You see the back end of his car has some pretty solid damage to it. And actually, Melillo, he's going to pull off the track right here. He is heading on to pit road. And, oh, boy, can we see some strategy here from the driver of the 53.
We are towards the top of the fuel window, but he does have a bit of damage, which one of the drivers trying to check up hard for that incident. Curious to see if he continues on, looking like he's just going to try the strategy call. Just try and go for the large undercut. It'll hurt him a lot at the end of the race, but the amount of time we've already talked about of follow-off already reaching 1.4 seconds now, that may give him, by the time everyone goes and pits in, about a 15-second cushion, which may be a decent amount if he gets a caution flag to get some valuable track position.
Yeah, we'll see if he's able to do that. Of course, one of the benefits here in iRacing is you can control the amount of fuel that is in your tank. So the length that these drivers are typically used to going with about 18.7 gallons is what you can put in these NASCAR Xfinity cars here on iRacing. The gallons here tonight, 16 gallons of fuel is what they have to fill up, or 15.9 officially. So a little bit of a shorter tank for these guys, and that'll force some moves here as Melillo Melillo going to go to kind of split this race up into two, and we'll have to see if the rest of this field, they're going to maybe look at trying to just do a one-stopper.
Yeah, that fuel number mentioned usually is on the 18-gallon, and you're right. That may force him onto the two-stop, absolutely, based on the calculations. Yes, he'll lose time, absolutely, on the second pit stop. Now, 2 on that regard. But if he feels like the tires are going to help more than trying to stretch the fuel, that may be curious. Based on the number as well, though, most drivers, I believe, may get to about 50, give or take, based on the fuel burn. So, because as on a normal tank, you can get to about 63, 65, give or take.
Well, we'll just do a quick comparison here. Melillo, whose car was a little bit damaged, runs a 31.482 on his first complete lap on fresh tires. As you see the difference there, he's able to well pull away from the damaged, or I guess we'll just say crispy making bacon Chevrolet of Davis Warren. But you see even down the straightaways is just hauling compared to the rest of this field, and is a second and a half faster right now than what the race leader is running. So the difference in tires is pretty significant, and I haven't seen too many drivers make their way onto pit road yet. We saw Cody Erdman around the same time that Melillo came down, but it seems like this is going to be just a handful, just a couple of drivers that try this two-stop strategy.
At least so far. We'll see if anyone else thinks about this, but when thinking about the calculations here, this explains a little bit about some of the tightness, because with less amount of fuel in the car, unless you make adjustments in an open series specifically, because underfueling is a potential strategy here, a little bit loose there, it can make you tight because you have to adjust the rear end of the car to account for less fuel in the back end. In a fixed series, that can make it a bit more difficult to adjust, where it can be more plowing tight like that.
Oh, and we'll have to see. It doesn't look like Vargas got any visual damage out of that, which that's going to be a sigh of relief for him. But Will Rogers just a bit tight off the exit of turn 4. He's going to scrape the outside wall. That's going to allow Ryan Vargas to go by and move up into the top 5 in his very aptly sponsored TikTok.com Chevrolet. Another driver made their way onto pit road to continue our green flag pit cycle. Nick Olson has made his way onto pit road, but for the most part, Justin, I think you're going to see a lot of drivers here just after lap 50 or around that time frame make their way onto pit road. Of course, you remember we've had the one caution flag that has slowed us up on lap 1. That is the only one to speak of, so you'd think if you're going to split it in half, go a couple of laps past lap 50, maybe 52, 53, I imagine is when you'll see a lot of these drivers start to make their way onto pit road.
That's at least the educated guess here, but it's looking like a lot of cars might not be able to stretch it to that rate at this point because, again, 1, talking about different cars. 2, Rogers is spinning into the pit entry.
Oh, and he's able to save it right in front of Vargas. He did the undercut. Vargas looked like he was going to enter in front, but a spectacular entry there by Rogers got him about a car length in front, and then he about lost it on entry and spun it up in front of Vargas. But a nice job of collecting that race car as they'll come down to the attention of their crews. And maybe that's something that we'll have to see is if our leaders can't make it to where they can do that one stop, if they need a yellow flag, and especially you have to think you're running the outside wall here, you're using more fuel than you typically would because you're running on the outside, you're not running on the inside. Could we see somebody who maybe tried to save fuel, or one of those drivers who even stopped and topped off after maybe using a gallon of fuel at the beginning of the race? Could we see one of those drivers try to stay out, but the yellow flag is out, and that's going to throw all of that out the window?
And I believe it may have been Will Rogers again. What did I say? You get a caution flag and gain track position. That man just helped a couple people, but just burned a ton more.
We'll have to see what exactly happened here, and it looks like if it's Will Rogers who was the cause of that incident, I'd be shocked because he was exiting you see right here, he's on the apron at turns 1 and 2, gets awfully loose, and you see turns completely sideways, saves the car, goes into the infield grass, but apparently that was enough to trigger the caution flag, even though it was below the apron, not necessarily even a 90-degree spin, but apparently that's going to be enough to do it. So unfortunately for Rogers and the rest of the drivers that came down pit road, that is going to trap them a lap down, and the cars that stayed out on pit road. Obviously, Brian Mercurio stayed out on the racetrack, but it was, I believe, 19 or 18 cars, rather, that were scored on the lead lap. They're going to be in a good position here to obviously trap the rest of the field. They'll have to come down to the service of their crews, but the rest of the field, they're going to have to take the wave around here. Yeah,
that's just going to lose them a ton of track position, and still, the fuel mileage is now up in the air because some drivers only could go to about 42, 43. Mercurio was still pushing pretty well on the gas, and now it's the matter of, can anyone make it towards the end based on what we've already seen in terms of strategy? Will people try and split it halfway? Will we see a ton of clutch and coasting if we stay green? If we get another caution flag, though, that takes the question marks out. It's going to be curious how this all plays out here, especially since Mercurio's been the car to beat up at the front.
Well, I think one driver who may have timed it perfectly, I believe may have been Justin Bland. I'm not sure, but it'll certainly be interesting to see. So many drivers were not able to make it to the halfway point, and what that means for this strategy that you could try to pull right here. I don't think we're going to be able to see all these drivers make it to the very end on fuel as it stands right now. But of course, maybe you think we get a quick caution on this restart. Obviously, a lot of implications that could happen as we'll have to continue to cycle through. Lights are still on the pace car right now, so we're still under pacing a large portion of the field directly behind the pace car and looking to wave around. It's going to be pretty much everybody up to the race leader and Brian Mercurio, which is about 10 cars or so. They're going to look to take the wave around the pace car here.
Yeah, this completely burned their strategy to try and gain some track position. Nick Olsen saying a big F from him because remember, he was a part of the undercuts. He's going to have to try and get the wave on some of the oldest tires here in all of this. So this really hurts drivers like him, like Melillo, like Henderson, like Patriccoli, like Rogers, of course. This is all going to potentially cost them a chance for some great runs here unless they get in our caution flag. And keep in mind, this was discussed during the drivers' meeting. If you cause a quick yellow after a restart, you will get him into longest line the next race as a penalty.
Obviously looking to cut down on caution flags after the restarts, and you have to think, because a lot of these drivers have put about 5 or 6 laps down, it does make a difference with how significant the tire fall off is. Almost to this point, you have to be very aggressive with the strategy. So if you know going in that you can't exactly make it all the way to the end on one stop, do you try to do something even more aggressive this run? I'm thinking for a lot of these guys that take the wave around, maybe you go 5 or 10 laps on this next run, short pit, and use all that time over the next run to try and get that time back. But again, it's just a really tough position to be in. Obviously, you had the potential for a quick yellow to kind of reset you and allow you to get up front. Another thing of note is the tire limits in this race. They had 4 sets on pit road, so 5 if you include the total that they started this race on. And obviously, most drivers have just come down and taken 1 set, so I don't believe that any tire limitations are going to come into play just yet. Maybe if we get a couple of yellow flags, that could change some things up. But for the most part, I don't think you're going to see too many issues on drivers necessarily running out of a set of tires. So you saw the cars drive around the pace car. The lights are off, and they'll duck down onto pit road this time by. Field will once again be under the control of Brian Mercurio and Jake Fisher on the front row. Mercurio has taken the lead. He hasn't relinquished it yet, and he gets out to a great start here on the front straightaway as they work it into the tri-oval. 49, as we're nearly to the halfway point, is where Brian Mercurio will take the green flag. 51 to go, and he is rocking it off, and Jake Fisher is as well. How about Austin Drake has made his way up to the 3rd position?
He was one of the drivers who mixed up a little bit of strategy with some of his rough goings here. We'll see how his 74 does here up at the front now with track position. The thing that's going to be important, though, getting clean air and saving tires quickly. Trouble for Justin Bland.
And trouble for Bland is, it looks like, obviously not the situation that he wanted to see with the undercut with the caution flag, and it looks like he is very slow after basically getting sucked into the outside wall. It was really just his own doing, got a little high, and I think you and I both know it, Justin, that sometimes when you get to that outside wall, it just wants to eat you up, and it's hard to get out of it, and Bland lost a lot of speed before he was able to get outside of the car. But there you see, battle for second. Here comes Austin Drake looking to try to move his Cookout Chevrolet up to position number 2.
And he's not afraid to use the bottom line, it looks like, to try and charge up and take track position, then try and save. What a dive. But the importance is just getting clear. He didn't get clear.
He didn't get clear. He didn't make contact with Jake Fisher, at least visually he didn't. From what I looked on the screen, there was not any visual contact, so not sure if perhaps it was just the 84 getting tight in anticipation of what potentially could come. But nevertheless, for Austin Drake, it is successful. He is up into second place. You see the 84 trying to hold on there to fourth, but obviously scraping the wall. We've seen how it's destroyed a lot of cars' speed, some of their runs. We'll see if more can hang on, but Drake is now looking to try and pounce on the race leader, Brian Mercurio.
I think Mercurio, though, is trying to save the tires. Drake may be pushing a little bit more, going a little bit quicker. And there's been a saying throughout the tire saving process: the slower you go, the better you're going to be on the long run when it comes to sacrificing some of the short run pace when it comes to fixed racing. That appears to be what Mercurio's doing when let it roll all the way to the apex, while Drake's going near full throttle, it seems, trying to get as much time as he can.
And Drake's going to do just that as he goes to the top spot. And Austin Drake is now your third race leader as we've moved across the halfway point tonight in the VSCRA National Premier Series. And Drake coming out here, he's made every race, all 8 rounds this season, has finished up in the top 10 3 times, has not finished up in the top 5 once this season. So a great run going for Austin Drake. And, you know, Justin, I think that even he recognizes, you know, he's driving very aggressively right now. I think Mercurio wasn't going to put up much of a fight because he's thinking this is eventually going to cycle around in his favor. But with all the chaos we've seen, all the damaged cars that are out there on the racetrack, I don't think it's too bad of a play right here for Drake to maybe push the issue here. And all he needs is a couple of cautions, and he just turned some great track position around for himself.
And it also gets him some valuable points here, too, since you do get a point for leading a lap. He was in the fight for a top 10 spot in the standings, but like the last time, it seems any time you see the 09 car or Frisch or Preston Pardis, there's usually 2 to 3 wide involved in the short run. Guess what? They're 2 to 3 wide once again and nearly smacking the walls again here.
Yeah, Preston Pardis trying to make his way by. He's been rebounding and trying to climb his way up all night, no doubt about it. He's going to be a contender for that hard charger award as he now at the stripe has control of the 10th position. He's able to make his way by Michael Frisch, and now he's looking to the inside, getting it done on the inside of Mitchell Riggs. And what a drive here from Pardis. He's, I think, kind of taking the Austin Drake strategy, just using it, ripping it up on the bottom and hoping that eventually maybe the track position works out for him. He can get a caution flag, come down and get some tires, but he has quietly moved his way up through this field and has done so all night through a lot of traffic, through a lot of damaged race cars. So Pardis awfully quick, and I think knowing his racing background, there's no shockers there, Justin.
I think we have to keep an eye on, though, this 07 machine. Had good track position up to start for this run. He's clutch and coasting on every corner entry right now. That's why he's losing so much time on the entry on the way to Apex. He feels, it looks like at least, it may be a couple laps short, or at least is going to try and stretch it to where he can try and make it without trying to pit here if this goes green. That could be crucial. Take a listen. Just hear how much he's backing it off and holding in the clutch, trying to save as much gas as he can right now at the start of this run.
Well, and we hear it, and you can audibly hear the amount that he is lifting. Of course, electronic fuel injection in these cars, you can lift and get just about as much fuel saved as if you were hitting the clutch. But obviously, these guys are going to take every precaution they can, trying to cut clutch and coast as much as possible. But it's so difficult to do, Justin, especially, again, you see he's running the longer way around the racetrack. He's running the top side. Obviously, you're going to use more fuel up there than if you were running down low, but he's just going to go for it here. And, you know, there's a couple different ways to take this last run. You could split it in half. You could short pit it. You could just do a splash and go right at the end. So Herschel, I guess, taking that fourth option, he's going to see if he can try and make it all the way around and try and save those couple of laps fuel. He may need a caution to do it. But if he's able to do that, maybe trap the field a lap down, maybe that's his key to trying to get to victory lane tonight. And there you see him move to the bottom of the track.
I think he just heard you, actually, in that where he's now realized maybe I should go to the bottom just in case and use the less amount of fuel and still clutch and coast it. Yes, it will kill his tires here and lose him a lot of time here on the long run with the pace up top. But this isn't a surprise here, as you talked about. But the battle for the race lead is starting to heat up. We talked about Drake potentially falling off. That's happening. Mercurio's reeling him in.
He is that last time by. It was actually Drake who's going to be able to take advantage of the track position play as the caution flag flies. Aaron Hale is sitting here in the middle of the infield grass, and it looked like a couple of cars ahead of him were battling 2-3 wide through 3 and 4, and unfortunately he's going to get the worst end of it. You also see the 20 machine gets a significant amount of damage. Peter Acumano gets some pretty heavy damage as well, but Hale spins here on the front straightaway. He'll tag the 63 in it as well, and we'll get a nice look at it. Oh, it looks like the 00 gets a nice little shot there. Richard Sprague Jr. as well.
Yeah. See on the replay in just a moment here. Hale was really trying to save, was going back and forth, had that contact. Looked like it was going to be fine, especially since there was this checkup effect right here that caused a little bit of a bottom-up effect with everyone just trying to get towards the middle. See that bit there? Hale gets hit from the right rear quarter panel, slams into the car, stuck in the wall. Looking like he's going to be okay, slide off in the grass. He's trying to correct it. This triggers the caution flag right about here-ish when he sloops down the track. But the problem is, the worst damage comes from Sprague here. He thinks he's going to be clear, full throttles it. Then the 33 slid around down to the bottom of the track, and they both in turn are demolished.
Yeah, I can tell you the 20 machine, you see the heavy damage as he squeezed into the wall. That is not going to help. You see Sprague right here, thinks he has it missed. He's hoping that the 33 would just lock up those tires and not let it travel all the way down the track. But unfortunately for Sprague, not able to do it. And actually, the engine has expired on that 00 machine. He is sitting in his pit stall and believe that's going to be the end of his night in the Richie Crashes machine. Unfortunately, he ends up crashed in this one. But it ends up working out for Austin Drake, who is going to exit off of pit road. He's actually going to come out second behind Brian Mercurio, who uses that top spot on the grid and top spot on pit road to pass Drake for the lead. But a nice call there for the 74 to forego a little bit of tire saving to try and get some track position. It works out for him. He'll restart on the outside of row number 1 when we get back going. So we're coming back out, and actually, Justin, speaking of coming back out, how about some drivers that have stayed out right here? Ryan Vargas right now behind the pace car. I was just assuming that many drivers would come down, but it looks like not everybody has elected to do so.
This is a wave around again back in the lead lap, and he's one of the few in that situation to actually do that. It looks like Palmieri at least is trying to get at least one lap back. That puts him one lap down. Short's trying to do the same. He's been pinned a couple laps down tonight. So a couple drivers are trying to get their lap back here and are already clutching, coasting hard, hoping for yet another caution to put them in the ballpark. But now it gets to the interesting mark. You talked about some of the tire ranges. We talked about some of the incidents with drivers before where they completely buzzed their tires in that first lap caution. Drivers like Riley, like Fitzgerald, like Sherman, they might be a little bit tight if they elected to change the tires because they felt like they were overheated, or if they ended up just getting the damage repair, they may be able to try and stretch things out. For the most part, though, if you're on the lead lap, you should be good to go on the fuel.
That is exactly correct. You should be good. And a correction on that, these drivers that are in front of the race leader, Brian Mercurio, they are looking to take the wave around. So that will include Ryan Vargas, Jonathan Plumeri, Kyle Short, Arnold Columbia, Davis Warren, Breyer Fritz. All those cars are looking to get waved around. So they won't restart at the front of the field here. But you mentioned that all these cars that pit, of course, they'll more than likely be good to go on fuel. Of course, these drivers that are staying out, they will not, but they will have an extra tire set on pit road compared to everybody else who just came down. Imagine most of the lead lap cars right now just have two sets of Goodyear Eagles sitting on pit road. So I believe this time the lights will go off atop the pace car, and it does. You'll see Ryan Vargas as well as a handful of others make their way by as we've pretty much transitioned to complete nightfall here at the Kansas Speedway. We've been slowed by just 3 caution flags, one on lap 1, another one during a cycle of green flag pit stops brought out by Will Rogers getting loose on the apron, and then obviously Aaron Hall and a couple of others making contact off the exit of turn number 4. And those will be the 3 cautions to speak of up to this point. Will we see more? I think that's going to be the question we'll have to ask ourselves. And then strategy, tire strategy, when you pit, when you stay out, all of that is going to come into play. But we'll reset the top 10 for you. Brian Mercurio, Austin Drake will lead us off from road number 1. Jake Fisher, Austin Moore, Kyle Riley, Andrew Schwartz have made their way up into the top 6 or so. Mitchell Riggs is in 7th. Christopher Heller in 8th. Preston Pardis still trying to march forward. He is in 9th. And Andrew Fitzgerald pretty close in terms of the Hard Charger Award. One started 37th in Pardis, and one started 36th in Andrew Fitzgerald. That's your top 10. And once again, Brian Mercurio going to have control of the field. Pace car is off. And once again, we'll get going here at Kansas as Mercurio an early launch, and that's going to work out for him. It's going to work out for Jake Fisher on the inside, who gets a great run on Austin Drake. He's going to have the inside in 1 and 2, but can he clear Drake on the outside? That's going to be the question as they work it off at turn number 2.
Yep, right there. The bottom line is the better line on the restarts here. Now, the tricky part is for groupings such as this, how do drivers like Preston Pardis and some of the others play this out? Because we've seen, again, the top line's been better as the tires wear out. Wouldn't be surprised to see everyone trying to find a hole in quickly here rather than try and charge it like a normal restart if you're or in some other situations, especially if you feel like you might not have to pit again because you want the track position.
We'll have to see. It just depends on how long we're going to go on a run. You see Pardis there to the outside. He is slowly making his way forward. He's now worked his way up into the 7th position. He works around Andrew Schwartz, who is stuck on the bottom side right now, and it looks like he's going to be on the wrong side of a freight train here perhaps in a couple of moments. Michael Frisch is going to go on by. The 11 of Christopher Heller looks like he's going to try to take advantage of Andrew Schwartz being on the bottom side of the racetrack. So the 67 in a really bad spot right now. It doesn't look like there's any opening right now to try and get up to the high lane.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to find some friends maybe in front of the next car. From back, he might be able to find a hole, but looks content there on the bottom side. And Olsen saying, you know what, I'll try this too. We've seen how much he's been aggressive tonight. But still, one of the drivers I'm keeping an eye on outside of that 74 is Pardis, because we talked about how quick he was earlier in the daytime conditions in practice. We've talked about him rising up to the field. He's been methodically gaining time tonight. He just ran a little bit faster than the leader last time by a few 100ths.
Oh, and a close battle going on for third right here between Austin Drake and Kyle Riley. Drake left the door open for Riley and slammed it shut off the exit of 2 as he looked to make a move around Jake Fisher. Wasn't able to get it done and got back up just in time before Riley pounced. And there you see Jake Fisher not going to give up the top side. And Justin, this is something even in the Esports Racing League I experienced last night, is if you're that car in front, you're going to block high on the front stretch if it's necessary to try and protect that top lane, because you could catch somebody sleeping on that front stretch and maybe try to take advantage of it. But Fisher, at least for the moment, not going to let that happen as he nearly scrapes the wall in 3.
Yeah, if you get a good enough run and pull enough draft, absolutely. And you have to be almost a little bit vicious, just about, and cutthroat when it comes to the blocks in the short run here, because you sacrifice that line, you're likely going backwards. Looks like, though, Drake's saying, you know what? I'll try something different. This is going to hurt him big time.
He didn't just run it in hard enough, didn't drift up when he needed to in the center of the corner. And as you see, that may cost him a handful of spots on the racetrack. And actually, he is going to catch a huge break from Austin Moore as Moore got a little loose in the corner. And Drake going to lose just one spot now. However, Riley going to go for the pass in front of the 84. He's actually going to complete it on the front stretch as the 84 had a bad exit off of 4. Riley sliding here through 2, but I don't think that Fisher is going to try to pass him. He has been awfully defensive on the high side of the racetrack. As you see, Drake pokes a nose down low. He taps the back of the 84 for just a moment, but he's able to sort it out. A long line of cars behind Drake as you see them fanning off of 4. It's just a cat and mouse game, Justin. Who wants to go down? Who's willing to take that run if you get it and try to complete that pass into the next corner?
Look like things calming down for now, at least, I think, with Drake's tires starting to go off. But the crazy thing is, Kyle Riley, remember, spun at the early part of this race to start off the first caution of the night in front of the field just about, and collected Joey Stone in that moment and blew his motor. He's been able to recover from that from near dead last up to second, and now is the fastest car on the racetrack. This is an unbelievable recovery here. This is all with a little bit of back-end damage. He's been able to handle that, however. It hasn't affected his splitter too much, and he's good on the throttle. On Mercurio, really backing it down to save still.
He is, and Riley doing a number on that right rear tire. It definitely works on the short run, but we'll have to see over the course of a full run how he can hold that car up. But right now, an impressive drive nonetheless from Kyle Riley, who is trying to drive his way all the way back to the front and nearly to the race lead. Mercurio able to get off of 4 and hang on for now. Drake going to go for the pass for 3rd. We'll see if he can complete the slide job this time. It looks like he's going to slide on up. Is Fisher going to go for the crossover here? It looks like Drake, a solid run. Will the 24 go? He's going to go low, and the caution flag is out before that battle can commence. And we'll find out where this one is. Believe it was on the back straightaway. One car hard in the inside retaining wall. That is the 55 of Andrew Fitzgerald, who was just running up near the top 10, and I think it was another slide job gone wrong, or somehow bumped into the outside wall. He spins to the inside, and we're slowed by our 5th caution flag of the evening.
Yeah, a little bit of contact in that case with Will Rogers and a stack of effect. Then I believe it was Melillo who got the 55 at the back end. See right there, Rogers slides up right into the quarter panel. Fitzgerald put in the wall, and hard hit from behind sends Fitzgerald hard to the inside, nearly smacks his front bumper off with the contact. That's how sharp it was there. Rogers was squirrely there in the first place to cause all that stacking up.
It did. The battle of 55s, and Andrew Fitzgerald gets the worst end of it. You also saw him passing by and getting a piece of that was Justin Melillo, who really just had nowhere to go off the exit of 2. But with 2 sets of tires sitting on pit road, we'll see what everybody wants to do with it. It appears that nearly everyone is going to come down pit road, and I imagine that most of them will take all 4 tires. We'll see if there's any takers on perhaps a 2-tire strategy right here, or obviously if anybody stays out. I don't believe we have a single driver who is currently scored on the lead lap who stayed out under this caution flag, so we'll have to see who gets off first. Brian Mercurio has been awfully fast all day long, but there you see perhaps some strategy being pulled. I believe the 09 and the 11 are on 2 as they come out well in front of Mercurio. So Mitchell Riggs will take the race lead off of pit road.
And here's the thing to remember here, Blake. We talked about the number. It is 5 total, 4 in the pits, the way iRacing calculates it. As a result here, not a surprise to see a couple drivers try the 2 tires, bank and save their left side tires maybe if something happens, to see if they can pull something. For Riggs, Heller, and Sherman, though, this is going to be extremely difficult to try and make this work.
It is. You have to mention, especially for Mitchell Riggs, in his case, he has quite a bit of damage on the right front quarter panel. So it'll be interesting to see with the old tires and perhaps a very slightly mangled race car if he's able to keep up. So we're slowed by our fifth caution flag of the evening tonight, the VSCRA National Premier Series, round number 9. And we're going to go side by side as we pace under the caution flag. You won't miss a moment of it, and we'll take you to the checkered flag when we return on STN.
Zelensky's field, and a huge opportunity for him as the green flag flies, and we say, let's go playoff racing from the roll bowl.
Locks the rear tires up, big plume of smoke like the engine expires. These guys are shifting just like they do in real life, so perhaps he has had an engine issue. Couldn't be Bobby Zelensky. Don't dig yourself a hole. Unfortunately, that's exactly what happened to Conti there with the engine issue. Oh, he just gets high, and then he gets to that left side in the grass, then nowhere to go. Some contact, actually, with the barrier. We'll have to see if that hurts his car.
Final quarter for Bobby Zelensky. He'll remain unbeaten on the road courses. Zelensky wins at the Roval, and he is the first driver to punch his ticket to the Championship 4 finale.
And we're back with you as we take the 1 to go signal. Right now, 22 laps to go in this one, in a race that is once again, like last week, has been led for majority of the laps by Brian Mercurio. But some late race strategies being pulled by a couple of drivers. Mitchell Riggs and Christopher Heller have taken 2 tires, and they will restart on the front row directly in front of Austin Drake, who has become a player late in the going here at Kansas, as well as the aforementioned Brian Mercurio. So, Justin, 2-tire call right here. I wouldn't say I expect the 2 tires to be quickly here, but out of that second row, who do you think has the better chance right here? Mercurio on the bottom or Drake on the top to try and escape the traffic in front of them?
I think Mercurio, because you have more space on the exit of turn 2 to get towards the white line down the backstretch and charge in. Meanwhile, you pin Drake in that situation, you're going to see him go backwards. This is going to get hectic, though, because drivers are going to go 3-4 wide if they have to get away from them.
We'll see what type of moves they make to get around them, as it looks like the 09 on the top side. He elects to take the top side for the restart. He gets the green flag, and now you're going to see it 3 wide there for second. Can Keller hang on there in the middle? Heller in the middle. Drake to the top side, Mercurio to the bottom, and it looks like, oh boy, we could set something up right here. Drake gonna push the back of the 09 down the back straightaway, as now he and Mercurio side by side on those fresh tires, but it looks like Drake gonna have the run off the corner. Mercurio's gonna slide up. Drake's gonna go on by, and now he's looking to try to take the race lead from Riggs, who is hanging on those right side tires. He nearly puts Drake into the wall.
And I thought at first Mercurio may have been able to clear, but he's actually backing it off again and trying to save a little bit, saying, you know what, I just want to get out of this. Just letting Drake burn up his equipment yet again. That may be a sign that, again, we're under 20 laps to go at this point here, Blake. If you pit at this mark on forward, there's no guarantee you get your track position back. He may be thinking the long con here if there's an air quickie yellow or 2.
He'll have to think that, but now he has 2 tires in front of him as Mitchell Riggs is in second. Heller is hung on. He is still up in 4th and not quite falling as fast as we would have expected. And then how about this name? We haven't mentioned him about the entire race outside of, I believe, that first lap wreck. Keith Sherman is all the way up into the 5th position late in the going here. Gabe Herschel is in 6th. And again, a couple of drivers that we haven't talked too much about. Zachary Sullivan is up into 9th. Nick Olson trying to make his way back up into the top 10. He's now running in the 9th position. He gets passed by the 51 for 8th. So a lot of movers here. And now Mercurio to the outside of the 09 for second.
That's expected now with the run. Again, the top line's coming in. And Fisher's now been put in the wall.
Fischer into the wall and believe that was somehow perhaps some contact with Nick Olsen. It didn't look like there was anything on my screen, but it puts the 84 into the wall, and that's going to continue what's already been an atrocious night for him. Some more damage on the right front of his machine, but some crazy battling going on up here. Now it is battle for third as Sherman is trying to make his way by. We just talked about him being in fifth. He's trying to take the third spot away from Mitchell Riggs, and now here comes Herschel looking to make his way into fourth.
And the interesting thing with Sherman is he's actually the only one on 2 tires I'm seeing here actually looking comfortable here. Wonder if just been able to save his tires a little bit more, maybe played a bit different on the call here, or at least had an off-cycle different type of pit stop at one point. Just making this work surprisingly here, Blake, to be able to hold on to the track position. Everybody else, for the most part, is starting to lose more and more time.
They are, and that's just better for our race leader who's in to clean racetrack. Riggs still doing a nice job, though. You have to think it's a net gain for him on those 2 tires. But when will Mercurio try to pounce, and can Austin Drake hold on here for, I guess, what you would kind of consider an upset with just not necessarily having the best speed all season long, but he is awfully strong tonight. That cookout Chevrolet is cooking tonight, and he is making it work up front. Does Mercurio have enough time to run him down?
Not quite sure at this point. I think he does, because he's within 3/10, and we've seen how good he is after about 10 laps. But that's going to be the key thing. How difficult will Drake make it for him to try and make a pass here in the closing stages? Because the expectation should be simple. You expect the potential amount of blocks here and aggression to try and fight for the position. His best finish of the year, mind you, was at Bristol, a P8 in that race. Before tonight, just 1 lead lap on the season. That was at Daytona back in August.
We'll have to see if he can hang on. The last time by, it was nearly a dead heat between your race leader and Brian Mercurio. We'll see what the time clicks in this time. A 6:14 for Austin Drake, a 6:07 for Brian Mercurio. So just 7/1000ths of a second quicker was Brian Mercurio that time by. But, this is what we talked about, Justin. You see the 41 with the run. It gets interesting here because obviously we know it's one thing to catch somebody. It's another thing to pass them, and especially here on the short run at this track, we've seen how dominant, how hard it can be to try and pass somebody on that top lane. So can Drake hold on here as we are approaching now 12 laps to go?
It all depends here on how much space Drake leaves on the top, and if he ends up being able to minimize that space, how hard Mercurio tries to push it on the bottom side. I think Mercurio can wait a couple laps here, just provide the pressure, try and force a mistake. If he can't force the mistake, just use some of the traffic as a bit of a pick and or ramp your way down to the bottom to make the move here. He's got a couple good opportunities. He doesn't need to make it immediately. Here we go.
Well, and it looks like, he looked like he was going to make it for just a moment, but instead he'll tuck in line. And if I were Drake, I would protect that top side like my life depended on it on both the back straightaway and the front stretch, as we'll take it around this time by 10 more circuits around Kansas Speedway is the scheduled distance, as these two have pulled about 1.3 seconds ahead of the rest of the field. Mercurio with the nose to the inside, but not going to have the run. He'll go all the way down to the apron to try and get it. They'll nearly be side by side entering the corner, but Drake's still holding on. Mercurio going to go to the bottom side now and test it out. He clips the white line. That's going to lose him some time.
Yeah, that's going to force him to lift here with a big bobble and a big slide off the corner, going to heat up those tires. That's going to mean he's going to have to be more aggressive on the next move. He won't have the time he had prior to making that chance. I like the idea, though, there, Blake, because he used the lap car as a pick because he knew that Drake couldn't go all the way down to the apron here, since this is much faster. If he ducked down here, he gets that opportunity again. There's a chance we see him try and make that move one more time.
Well, and despite the fact that Drake got away in 3 and 4, Mercurio made up an awful lot of time. So the 41, I believe, at this stage of the race is faster than the 74. But as we know, can he make it work on the bottom to try and pass him? Drake is charging the corner so hard, pushing up in the center and nearly scraping the wall in 3 and 4 every single time. Can he? I think he's just going to try to keep it out of the wall here as now it's 9 to go.
Some of the drivers on 2 tires have equalized a little bit. Others are sliding back a little bit. Sherman's off to 7th. Riggs has been able to hold on to 3rd, though. So a couple of the drivers have been able to make it work. Others, this is going the opposite direction. And when it comes to the championship fight, remember that contact before with Fisher with the wall involved Olsen nearby him? He's going to lose points now because of that contact. He got a significantly damaged front end. He was a contender for this win and set us these two.
They did, and Mercurio getting awfully close to that wall in 3 and 4 as he just flirted with it for just a second and scraped it, but was able to get off before he really got sucked into the wall. You see off of 2, he looks to the middle side, and that run on the top side that Drake gets is just so powerful. But this is where we've seen Drake really push it in the middle of 3 and 4. Mercurio's going to bring it back down. Look at the speed at the center of the corner as Mercurio's going to go low. He's going to go all the way down the apron, and now they will be side by side. Does Mercurio throw the slider here?
Oh, there it goes.
And Mercurio's going to throw it, but he's going to think better of it as Drake will power back on the outside, but doesn't get a great run off the corner. Mercurio able to keep pace with them off of 2. Golly, Justin, where's Jacob Seelman with what we're probably going to have to see at the end of this race?
Again, though, I think he's already made the move predictable a couple times here. Mercurio has on Drake. Here comes a big bubble, though.
And Mercurio experiencing some technical issues, and that he's going to throw the slide job regardless. And I think that just kind of caught Austin Drake off guard. He didn't know where he was. The 74 kind of loses control in 1 and 2, but it's going to be enough for Brian Mercurio to take the lead here. So a bit of an unfortunate circumstance, a technical issue that he just doesn't have control over, but it just works to the benefit of Mercurio, who takes off and now has about a 2-car length lead over Drake with 5-4 to go.
Drake's not going to be happy about that one. That's going to be controversial because the reason I think he lost so much time there down the front is with him not knowing where Mercurio was, he gave extra space thinking that Mercurio was going to stay to the white line instead of the apron. He ends up squeezing down to the apron. He likely causes contact and both of them go in the grass. So now he's going to need a caution flag for any shot here. I think if Drake gets one, he might have a shot at this win still.
Exactly. I think that was more of a case that you just have to prepare for the worst as a race car driver. You don't know where he's going to be. You don't want to appear inside his car when he his connection gets stabilized once again. So unfortunate there for Austin Drake, who was looking to try and battle for the race lead. Mercurio taking off, and it looks like he has a full head of steam away. 2/10 was what Mercurio pulled on Austin Drake that last time by. However, developments here in the top 5. We see Gabe Herschel. He's made his way up to 3rd. Nick Olsen trying to compete for a spot to get interviewed here. He's on the hard charge as they approach 2 laps to go this time.
And looking like I think he might be able to get the good push here. Just needs a good run into turn 3 and slide it on up the track. Force Herschel to check up a touch. If he can get that done and force Herschel to lose momentum for the cross, he can try and hold on to a top 3 spot or take away a 3rd spot here.
We'll see if he can do it. The white flag displayed this time for Brian Mercurio, who is well off and on his sights, but we'll keep our eyes on this battle for 3rd as Herschel gonna try to hold on. Will Olsen go to the bottom side here? It appears he's gonna throw the slider hard into the corner is Nick Olsen. He's gonna slide up in the middle of 1 and 2, and here comes the 07 on the bottom side, and it looks like Olsen might lose a couple of spots for that, but off of turn number 4 for the 2nd time in as many weeks. It's the 2nd time he's gone back-to-back. Brian Mercurio is going to be your winner tonight at Kansas Speedway. It's going to be Drake in 2nd, Herschel going to finish 3rd, and actually Olsen, he's going to lose several spots here as he got into the wall in 3 and 4 after some some contact with Mitchell Riggs. So Olsen, who was looking for third, he's going to have to settle for ninth.
Oh, and he's not happy here. Here he goes on the back end of the 09.
Well, and there you see the frustration there from Olsen, who feels he got kind of stuff in the wall there. And, you know, the great thing about virtual race cards, they don't cost a penny. So Olsen going to, I think, kind of visually show you his displeasure there as he's going to give him another shot right there. And I can't expect he would be all too happy about that one.
Especially on the last lap in the last corner being fed the quarter panel. That can frustrate a little bit. He is one of your biggest movers though still, but could have gained much more points if that didn't happen there. But in the end, Mercurio, the best driver on the long run, able to take the checker flag.
He is, and again, that's big when you talk about the points. There's a lot of bonus points if you finish up there in the top 5, but Mercurio doing a burnout as we'll take a look at our full field rundown in this one. Mercurio, for the second time this season, has gone back-to-back. He won the first 2 races he competed in this series, and he has won the last 2 a week ago on the road course at Charlotte, and today he comes out in the 1.5 miles at Kansas and gets the job done. Austin Drake, heartbreak for him, but he's going to be able to take it home second. Gabe Herschel marched all the way up from the 33rd spot to the 3rd position. It'll be interesting to see if he gets that hard charger award. Mitchell Riggs in 4th. Keith Sherman rounds out your top 5. A solid effort from Andrew Schwartz, who started in the back. He finishes in 6th. 7th finish in spot will go to Austin Moore. 8th is Tristan Hagenstein. 9th, after being involved in some of the late race contact with Mitchell Riggs, is Nick Olsen, and 10th goes to Timothy Pacholi.
11th spot tonight goes to Michael Frisch. Quiet night for him with Heller all the way to 12th after his strategy call really dropped off at the end of this race. Preston Partisan 13th. A very quiet race, though, for Brad Perez. Up 17 spots to 14th. Sullivan up to 15th at the end of the race. Vargas was a contender in the top 10 at one point, was involved in some of the contact, ended up getting some damage on the front nose, had to take a wave around, still recovered though for a 16th place run. Elliot Henderson losing a ton of points tonight towards the end of this race in 17th. Will Rogers up and down in 18th. Erdman at 19th. And here's the big kicker, at least 10 points lost for Jake Fisher because of that incident in turn 2 for him in the closing stages. That front nose damage cost him at least 10-15 spots and puts him in 20th.
Edwin Mendez will finish in 21st. 22nd from the racing experts is Justin Melillo. 23rd goes to Kyle Short. 24th, after some early contact, was Andrew Fitzgerald. 25th, Hayden Ruffin. 26th goes to Eric Kempf. 27th was Chad Mikas. 28th is Breyer Fritz. 29th, after being so strong at the end and nearly having a run at the lead, Kyle Riley brings it home in the 29th position, and Jonathan Palmieri rounds out the top 30.
Rest of the field tonight, the Ouchbane list, as they like to call it. 1 lap down, Palmieri, as mentioned. Cumano in 31st, Columbia 32nd, 3 laps down. Warren, quiet night for him in the 70, 33rd. Hansen in his first race, 34th, was a contender for a top 20 at one point. 14 laps down is where he runs. Hale, Stone, Bland, Schwalm, and Sprague Jr. round out your 39 entries. Overall, 39 laps down for the 00.
And we'll go ahead and take a look here as we wrap things up here for our full field rundown at kind of what happened there on the last lap. Again, it was some contact. We saw Olsen battling for the 3rd position off of turn 2, and we'll get another look at it happen right here on the last lap. Olsen goes for the slide job, completes it successfully in turn 2, but there you see Herschel go for the crossover right here. And, you know, that's the problem, Justin. You throw it in hard and you lose all this momentum, but then take us through 3 and 4.
Yeah, this is where the tensions rise because it was close right about here. The 09's trying to clear in right there. Kicks up the track a touch, a little bit more tighter, puts Olsen to the fence, loses all tons of spots of momentum there, and everyone else just able to go full throttle and swallow them up. That's where the frustration comes in, and as a driver, it can make you mad since it's the last lap. Yes, you're fighting for strong positions and valuable points, but when that happens with that close, that can force the tension to rise.
It certainly can. And again, you think about the point system you utilize in this series. It makes all those top 5 positions of particular importance. And so losing them is not going to go over small. But we'll go ahead and catch up with Brian Mercurio, who once again is in victory lane tonight. And, the one thing about Brian Mercurio, the consistency is there, as we'll get him up here into the booth in just a moment, as we'll still trying to run down and chase the driver down to victory lane. Let's see if we can't get Brian Mercurio up into the booth.
Either way, for Mercurio, this is a big points night when you think about it, Blake. Just to put it that way.
Oh, certainly so. A huge points night. He gets 48 just for finishing up front. Obviously, led the most laps, so he is able to get it done. And we'll have to kind of refresh things here. We'll take a look at the point standings here in just a moment to see if everything's all refreshed with it. It is not yet, but we obviously know Mercurio was about 44 points back of the points leader coming into tonight. It was Jacob Fisher who led that category. And we'll have to see if I think Brian's he's given us the runaround here in the virtual infield. He's playing hard to get right now. Up there we go. All right, we caught up with Brian Mercurio, your winner here tonight, as he ends up in victory lane for the second time in the series. He has gone back to back. So Brian, you had a pretty vicious battle there with Austin Drake there for the last 30 or 40 laps. Kind of walk us through what your mindset was with him being awfully aggressive like he was.
Yeah, so I saw that his strategy going in was going to be to just run as hard as he can. I think he himself even admitted to me kind of there after the race that he knew he didn't have the pace that I did. However, I guess if you want to call it like a normal size run, anywhere from maybe like 15, 20 laps. So, he had to try something different. He had to try running as hard as he could, and it worked for a little bit there. And, it was just a matter of time. That's why I really wanted it to go green past maybe 15, 20 laps, really try to get to a point where my tires would come in. And like we saw at the end there, I finally got, that good size run there and made the pass on him and cruised the way to the win.
You were certainly able to do that, but you went on a road course last week. You come out here to a mile and a half this week. What do you think makes you so strong that after running on racetracks that are complete polar opposites of each other, the Roval at Charlotte, and then coming right back out to another mile and a half and running on the Oval, what do you think makes you so strong at both of them?
I don't know. I know Kansas is not. I wouldn't call it a fan favorite here on iRacing. It's got some mixed opinions here. With it just being so one lane dominant, a lot of the tracks on iRacing people will say are one lane dominant, but when it's on the top, it makes it even harder to pass. Just because you can't really, you can't stick your nose under anybody. You really got to wait for them to either make a mistake or you get a big enough run yourself to where you could throw it to the outside coming out of turn 4. So I don't know. I felt like I've been pretty good at Kansas. I've been running some fixed races this week. Just kind of, vibing and doing my own thing, and coming out here to Kansas, I knew I'd be fast. Like I said, it was nice to see some competition there from guys like Austin. I know Kyle had an interesting strategy there. I was talking to him throughout the race. He was going to be on an alternate pit strategy there. So if that worked out for him, that would have been pretty cool. We've seen it work out for him at Las Vegas this season. He had a different strategy with fuel. He was able to win the race because of that. So I don't know. I just felt like I was super comfortable tonight. Set was a little tight going in 3 and 4. 1 and 2 was pretty good, but really just managing that right front, being able to control that throughout a run, and just kind of setting your own pace and just going from there.
Well, Brian, I'll go ahead and throw the mic over to you one more time. Know you got a couple people to thank that put you in victory lane tonight.
Yeah, just want to give a shout out to you guys here in the broadcast booth, Zach for putting on the broadcast, you and Justin for being commentators, Elliot for putting on the league every week. It's always fun racing against a lot of familiar names that I've been racing with for years here. It's always cool. Lowline racing, the guys that I've been with here since earlier this year put me through my Road to Pro efforts, and we're going to be with for my Pro Series efforts here later this year. And now we got on the car DM Software Development, ran by David Morin. If you want to call him the owner, kind of head admin of Lowline Racing. It's his software company that I'm actually helping him out with. So love repping a logo like that on my car. And that's about it for tonight. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Brian. Congratulations. We'll let you go celebrate your win, and we'll catch up with the driver that gave you a pretty valiant fight tonight. Austin Drake has caught up with Justin Prince, and he's standing alongside.
Yes, indeed. And Austin, first things first, you were very quick on the short run tonight, but in the end, just couldn't hold on towards the end. How would you describe that battle for the victory?
Yeah, I mean, I knew that Brian was quick. I knew that he was saving his tires, but I mean, with how quick he was, there's not a whole lot I could do. So I just figured I'd drive the wheels off it, try to hold that high lane, see if I could hold him off. Didn't work out in the end, but honestly, a P2 finish I'm pretty happy with. Went out there and led some laps, which in this league is not easy to do. So I'm pretty proud of my performance overall tonight, and managed to come home with that P2 finish.
Yeah, it was your second on 4 lead laps the season, 1 lead lap at Daytona for you in the previous time. That was it before tonight. But you were so quick on the short run, but then started, it seemed, falling off in the long run. What do you feel you could have changed up to try and mix things up a little bit, or try and make sure you were prepared for the end of this run, if that makes sense? Because you were so quick on the short run, then Mercurio ate you back up in the long.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to lack of practice. Didn't have a lot of seat time this week to take at Kansas. So running up next to that wall is a little intimidating. So a lot of times going into the corner, I brake early, let off the gas early, try to avoid shooting up into that wall when Brian and some other guys were able to kind of dive it in with a little more confidence, try to get a little more right rear rotation. I noticed at the end of my runs, my right front was burned off a little more than I wanted it. But just with the lack of seat time, lack of confidence in the car and in myself, and being able to keep it off the wall, just didn't have the ability to drive it like I wanted to get off that right rear a little more. So I think just being able to drive it in harder, save that right front a little bit more, especially in 3 and 4, where the car was really tight, I think really could have helped me there in the long run. Overall, I think that's really the biggest thing I can pinpoint there. So I'm definitely going to try to get more speed time for, I think, Texas next week, and hopefully safe tire a little better, get some more long run speed.
What's your opinion on that track?
The reconfig's definitely a little interesting. I like that it's different from our other, cookie cutter mile and a halfers. But that 1 and 2 is just a weird corner. Weird combo of corners. So I wouldn't say it's my strongest track. I've had some good performance there before, but not a giant fan of it. Definitely not one of my best tracks. But we'll try to get some good seat time in next week, and hopefully have some good practice going into it.
Anyone you want to thank for your run tonight?
Obviously, I want to thank my teammates, Zachary Sullivan, Dylan Horn wasn't able to make it out tonight. Definitely want to thank my spotters. JT Campbell has helped us in the booth, or on the grandstands here, for the majority of the season. Tonight, my good friend and roommate Joe Sullivan was able to help out with a little spotting work as well. I also want to thank everyone who was in my stream chat, cheering me on, encouraging me, giving me tips. Was super helpful. So Gatorade is good, Richie crashes, Andrew, Sammy, anyone else who's in there who I may have missed. I'm sorry if I forgot their names, but I want to thank all of them.
Congratulations on the second place run tonight.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for y'all's work in the booth.
Thank you. Austin Drake coming home second tonight, Blake.
He does, and it'll be Gabe Herschel who comes home in third tonight. And, Gabe, you're a name that, we didn't talk about too often tonight, but at the end of the race, you were really, really charging to the front. What kind of speed did you have in that car that you were able to make so many moves at a track where we've heard time and time again through our first couple of interviews, it's just very hard to pass here?
Yeah, well, for starters, thanks for doing this, guys. I know this is a lot of work, and, I watched the broadcast last week at the Roval, and it was great. As for my race, I needed track position. I had decent pace all night. Tires looked good after every yellow. I could not get the track position. And luckily I think I stayed out when we got that caution in the middle of pit stops. I ended up about 15th, and then I just slowly moved my way to the front. And it worked out for us at the end. I had better tires at the end, saved my stuff, and was able to come home third. So it was a good night. I'm second top 5 here this season, so that's good. We gotta qualify better. Qualifying's killing me, and it's really hurting me most of these races. So I think if we can knock that down, we could definitely be a top 10 car every week.
Yeah, I was about to say, as somebody who struggles with qualifying myself, this is third race in a row. You're starting 17th or worse, and it's just so hard to make your way forward. Any track you go to, especially when you got some stiff competition like this, it's hard to try to make that work. But the other theme of tonight was just attrition. We've seen a lot of cars that scraped up the wall during the race. How were you able to miss all of that? And I know it's just so hard when you're running so close to the wall, having to anticipate when those guys maybe are just running a little too close. You have to back off a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. The first half of the race, I feel like, especially with these cars, is just keeping it clean. When you come to a track like Kansas and you really only have one lane to work with, you got to have all the speed that you possibly can. So for me, the first half of the race was just trying to get as much track position as possible, keeping the side clean. I ran about, I would say, maybe half a lane lower on that second seam, and just trying to keep the car clean. And then, like you said, if we get to the end of these races, and it's a free for all, to be honest with you sometimes. So, for me, it was just kind of trying to keep the car clean and get to the end. And that's kind of how I look at all these races. I'm not going to go out there and lead, 70, 80% of the race. I'm going to have to not luck my way into it, but kind of just, keep the car clean and hope stuff falls my way to get a good finish like tonight. And hopefully we can have a little more of that next week at Texas.
Just got to maximize it out. Well, Gabe, did a great job working your way through the field. I believe it is you and both Tristan Hagenstein who moved up or gained 30 positions tonight. So it'll actually be interesting to see which one of you will get those 2 bonus points for the Hard Charger Award tonight. But I'll go ahead and hand you the mic one more time. Know you probably got some people to thank on your machine who helped you get here to a third place finish.
Yeah. Everyone at DL Performance, we've kind of rebranded this year, so we're trying to get as much exposure as possible, and obviously finishes like this help. On the car tonight, we had Ryan Vargas brand, Elliot Henderson Graphics, Barracuda Simtech, Speed Visions, Tristan Hagenstein Photography, and on the rear, we had Jersey Shore Supplements. So really grateful to have all of them on the car, and hopefully we can get some better finishes for them in the near future.
Certainly so. Well, congrats on your third place finish tonight, Gabe. We'll hope to talk to you soon.
Appreciate it, guys. Take care.
That's Gabe Herschel. And Justin, before we sign off tonight, your final thoughts on what was a pretty interesting race.
I think this race is going to have a lot of championship implications when thinking about it, because Mercurio we talked about was third in the standings. This gains him a decent amount of points on your points leader entering this evening by far because of what happened in the final 10 laps to Jacob Fisher. He's now straight up in the hunt tonight. He led the most laps. He was one of the fastest cars on the racetrack all evening. He had good track position from the get-go. I think he can be a solid contender and legitimate contender now that he's back in the conversation with how he did tonight. Now, everyone else, though, at the same time, because of this, Blake, is going to have a lot more pressure for Texas, Martinsville, Phoenix, and Homestead to try and perform if they want to win the title, because it's much more closer now because of Fisher's problems, with Timmy having to use 2 tires at one point to get track position. The championship's wide open now.
It certainly is. Well, we'll have to look and see how things play out, because obviously we continue on rolling. Next week we'll be at Texas. It'll be another 100 lapper. And again, that'll be coming to you right here on STN. So from a broadcast partner, Justin Prince, for our producer down in the virtual production trailer, Zach Johnson, I'm Blake McCandless saying so long tonight from the Kansas Speedway, where once again we bid farewell. And congratulations to Brian Mercurio, your winner tonight at Kansas Speedway. Until we see you next time, have a good one.